All right, you happily miserable accursed. We're back the day after the debate. This is Friday, April the 18th. Good Friday. I don't think my mother would think I should be working today, but I am. And that's how devoted we are. I've got with me Kory Teneycke, Jordan Leichnitz, Scott Reid. We'll go through the debate last night, whether it meant anything, who did well, all the questions a person might ask. But first, from Politico, we have Mickey. Hey, Mickey, how are you?
I'm ready to go home.
I saw Mickey last night. It was so nice.
It was nice.
On set? Yeah.
It was nice. She adds obligatorily.
Mickey, do you have any insight into what happened with the scrums being shut down last night?
Oh God, yeah. Well, there was some chirping among some Rebel News journalists and some members of other media in the media filing room yesterday afternoon, probably about an hour before the debates were going to start. That led to Michelle Cormier talking to Ezra Levant. Things basically settled down about 10 minutes before the debate started. Most of the journalists were just minding their own business, focused on their deadlines. And then about half an hour into the debate, I got word that the campaigns were told that there was going to be no post scrums because of security concerns. And so I went and asked around, and the commission was suddenly missing from the room, and the campaigns were trying to get answers from the commission, wondering what the hell they mean by security concerns. People were texting me and other journalists asking if we were safe, and we were like, yeah, we are safe. We're just all watching the debate, like what's happening. And then it was about like 90 minutes after they told the campaigns, they finally told us media that the post scrums were going to they weren't going to happen.
Well, there you go. This debate commission, they're on top of this thing, hey?
Wait, are we going to do this now, or are we going to revisit this thing?
Do it now.
Well, then let's fucking do it. Okay. Fuck these guys. Fuck these right-wing incel asswipes. Fuck them over and over and over again. This is a fucking election campaign, and they seized the weakness of Michelle Cormier and the commission to turn last night into a fucking clown show. Right. First of all, they start goading people. Cormier and the commission, of course, allow Ezra, an arsonist, into the room, and then they give him a nice bunch of fucking kindling and a match. And, they get into an argument with them that allows them to tape everything. And then we, Kory, myself, Kathleen, we're all kicked out of. They just said their reaction is, all right, well, we're going to lock down the media filing room, which is where we were supposed to watch it. So they're like, okay, we're going to kick everybody out. That way it will maintain some integrity in this room. So they kick us out, but they leave the fucking rebel in. And then it just turns into complete pandemonium where they start harassing media, even as like the crew, like just regular workaday Joes are trying to remove the material. These guys are filming it, antagonizing them, provoking them. And then when people say, hey, get the fuck out of the way, they run to the police literally and say, I've been assaulted. Why won't you arrest them? That fucking menzoid twat. Fucking all over the place. And then it was so bad that the CBC crew, like literally Dave Cochran and Rosie Barton, had to be escorted by security because all these incel assholes were waiting for them. And they literally the police were concerned for their physical security. Like, these guys disrupted a democratic exercise. They delighted in it. They filmed it. They raised money off of it. And Michelle Cormier and the commission invited it all, melted down when it occurred, and had no plan, no ability, and no wit to try to manage it. It was just a complete fuck show from start to finish.
Well,
right.
I'll put a lot more emphasis on the commission. Like, long before whatever happened with Rebel Media yesterday, all the things that we talked about yesterday on the pod. Like the removal of the Greens, like the morning of the debate, the changing of the time of the debate based on a hockey schedule that had been out since July. Just to make it all about me, having us all sit in the fucking cold to do live TV for 2 nights in a row. throwing me and you out of the filing room when I was two measly slices into my personal pan pizza that we got for dinner. You
I
know,
had that crumb cake.
the the notion that like, look, before all this happened, I had look, I've known Ezra for a long time. He worked for me for a number of years. I had a perfectly civilized chat with him, as one would with somebody they've known for years, in the filing room. But like, if you're going to have Rebel in the room, Rebel's going to do the things that Rebel does. And like, this is, I don't know, like the frog and the scorpion sort of story. Like, like, look, that's what's going to happen. And I know the defense coming back will be, oh, well, Rebel had to sue to get into the room and we had no choice and all of that. Well, sure, okay, that's all true. But in terms of how you arrange to take media questions, that's a choice they had. And decisions that they made around that were poor ones. They're poor for the fairness of access of media. I have no problem with Rebel getting a question at a news conference. Getting the first five questions seems like that's a process flaw on the part of the debate commission. So, look, even the parts that were a lot less defensible around what went on uh, in terms of the behavior of some of the Rebel folks, I would say, I still come back to the same conclusion. The commission shit the bed on this, like, and every step along the way, every step along the way. So, shame on these guys. And I think the whole fucking thing should be disbanded. And we should do something different. Like the model I would approve of, most is let the political parties organize the debate and invite the media to come and cover it and manage it properly. Because no political party in Canada would allow the shit show that we saw occur because they're used to doing media management. They're used to organizing events. They're used to having proper security. They're used to, how to handle these things. Like it was a total shit show. Total shit show.
All right. Thank you for that deep explanation of what went on last night. Mickey, where are the leaders today?
They're getting out of town. They're getting out of this shit show. Mark Hardy, he's going to be in Niagara Falls later this morning, and in the afternoon he's going to be visiting a small business in Port Colborne, and then he'll hold a meet and greet in Brantford. Pierre Poilievre, he's actually sticking around in Montreal for a morning press conference, but then he's headed out to BC for the next few days to do some campaigning. As for NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, he's making an announcement at a local farm about an hour northwest of Montreal. It's a riding that former MP Ruth-Hélène Brosseau used to be in, and she's hoping to win it again, make a federal comeback. And then he's also headed to BC later today, and he'll meet with the Muslim community leaders there, and he will also be voting.
All right. Hey, whatever happened to, didn't leaders used to hold rallies the morning after the debate in order to demonstrate momentum and that they'd won and enthusiasm and all that? What happened to that?
Yeah, I don't know. There hasn't been rallies.
I think you would have to find people excited about the debate in order for that to
Yeah.
Well, had they done one for the media covering it, there'd be a rally this morning to celebrate the fact they're fucking over. But there are not enough media left in Canada, though, to hold a rally, even if they were all in one place at one time.
That'd
Right.
be true.
Nikki, are we losing you next week? I hear Nick is coming back next week.
Yeah, he's coming back. He's fun though. You guys will enjoy it.
Yeah, we're fine with Nick, but you're a delight. Thank you for joining us.
And it was
Thanks, Mickey.
We're all team Mickey.
It was really great to meet you in person.
Yes, you too. I didn't realize you were so fashionable in person, so it was an honor, really.
Glad you didn't meet me.
All right, bye guys.
As the Trump administration continues disrupting the Canada-US trade relationship, It's reassuring to know Candu reactors are Canadian designed, and they're helping to ensure our energy security. Candu reactors have been powering the Canadian economy for more than 60 years. Current Candus have been updated and modernized to meet today's standards, but there's a need to build new reactors in Ontario to buttress our existing high-functioning fleet and help secure our energy independence with clean baseload power. These reactors also provide critical access to life-saving medical isotopes used in hospitals across Canada and around the world. Unlike other large reactor technologies that rely on foreign sources of enriched uranium, Candu reactors use natural uranium mined and prepared in Canada. President Trump can't mess with our fuel. Equally important, the construction of the next generation of large reactors in Ontario help ensure our skilled manufacturing base of high-paying union jobs, threatened by Trump's tariffs, will be in demand as we build a fleet of reactors in the decades to come. These large Candu reactors will provide Ontario with much-needed additional power. At the same time, investments in small modular reactors will be necessary too, particularly in remote locations for resource development. Candu technology, designed by Canadians, built by Canadians, for the benefit of Canadians. Let's get moving. So, sadly, not that it would have meant anything, but for technical reasons, Pollara does not have fresh data for us this morning. On the other hand, my hair is very large and fluffy. I don't know what to do about that.
I like it. It looks like it looks like muffins that just came out of the oven. It's all kind of, they're all sort of raised.
You're on a beach
I've got
somewhere.
a lot of
I don't
options
know.
for you. I've got a lot of options for you. Scott,
Yeah.
Scott, I was telling them before we hit record and before you were on that we're spending our day the same way. I'm going for like a 3-hour spa treatment. Hour one is a massage. Hour two is a hair massage treatment thing. I'm not even sure what it's going to entail, but it's going to be exciting. And then there's some hydrotherapy thing. I don't know. Anyway, and I just said like we're doing the exact same thing. Are we not?
For sure.
I think I just died a little inside, but
I assume that your hair is prepared with truffle oil. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. How did you know?
Yeah,
it's Christian Dior truffle oil.
Right. Anyway, Pollara. Oh, and what? Wait. Let's be professional about this. Today's polling is brought to you by Enbridge, a leading Canadian energy infrastructure company, reliably and affordably fueling your quality of life and powering our economy. So, what Pollara did do for us is go back over the last week, so they get an enormous sample, and look at the leadership comparisons going into the debate. And I think this is the setup for our conversation, which is on the issue of best to deal with the economic fallout from the tariffs. It's Carney 48, Poilievre 30, Singh 7. On best to deal with Donald Trump, Carney 47, Poilievre 30, Singh 7. Best to defend Canada, Carney 44, Poilievre 34, Singh 8. Okay. And then you get to anything that might reflect on the history of the government, understands what people like me are going through. Carney 22, Poilievre 27, Singh 21. Shares my values. Carney 25, Poilievre 29, Singh 19. Cares about people like me. Carney 22, Poilievre 26, Singh 22. So on two different frames, this is two completely different elections, right? And we now know from weeks of watching it that the Conservatives have decided not to try to win the Trump frame, but to force the other frame, the cost of living government record frame, as the primary one in the election. And the data would say they're on much sounder ground. It doesn't look like a big sweep in that circumstance, but it looks more like a win. And by God, there's new Democratic votes in that frame, where there are no new Democratic votes in the Trump frame. So with that as a backdrop, Scott, what do you think happened last night?
Well, we know that when people watch debates, it tends to confirm their bias. And so I am nervous that my own bias just eclipses it, because I watched it and I thought it was a much more entertaining and frankly much more substantive debate. I thought it was a good debate. I heard chirping from different people. Some people didn't like it. I thought it was a good debate. I thought it was pretty substantive. I didn't like the last question, but I thought by and large, it was a pretty substantive debate. I thought it was pretty spirited. They brought a little bit more fire than they did in French. And I thought that it all pretty much, particularly the critical first 30 minutes, worked to the benefit of Carney, because he was under fire. He was the focus. He was getting it from all sides. But I thought it also sort of allowed him to slow the game down. And as everyone's head sort of pivoted to look at him, he seemed like he was the thoughtful, deliberate, commanding center of it all, and seemed like the guy who must be in charge, who sounded like he was in charge of his brief. I thought he was weak on crime. That was a bad passage. But the debate began with Trump. I thought he was incredibly solid on that stuff, really looked good. And if anything, got the better of Polyev, even in the spirited sort of back and forth chippy stuff on that. And so I really came away thinking that Carney didn't just survive the debate, which is what you would think as the front runner would be your objective, but that he actually he pulled the thing out. I would think that Polyev rang the bell with his own constituency. Like, he did manage to consistently pound and pound and pound and pound away. I'm just not sure that, like, the taglines of "bring it home" and "here for you," all that sort of shit, or not here for you, but whatever the rest of us said, let's save Canada, Canada first, whatever the fuck. I'm not sure that it felt politician. He didn't have a good moment, in my view, until the end, when he finally felt like he maybe was connecting with people, got a little emotion, and you saw some passion. So I hasten to say, like, I worry that I'm just reflecting my own bias, but I thought that Carney came out roses, and nothing about last night felt to me like it was going to change the trajectory of this debate, of this election.
And Kory, from your vantage point?
I agree with everything that Scott just said. There was, if you watch the debate, there wasn't a clear winner other than the normal Rorschach test of, like, who did you like going in, and that's you had enough there for any of those leaders to come out saying my guy did great. And like, that's what most debates are. Like, it's what like 98% of them are. Uh, the question I have is, who is going to do what with the good parts of the debate that reinforce what they need to do with the people they need to convince. And I think that'll tell the tale of who won the debate in the end. It's who takes the right clips and promotes them through social media and elsewhere, uh, to have a much larger audience see them. Poilievre's best moment happened in the last, few minutes of the debate. It's where he sort of, what Scott referred to, when he talked about talking to people at the end of his rallies and connecting with them and hearing their personal stories and saying, like, I'm not going to forget you. And that was something that connected with folks, I think, in the way that he needs to, which is to show that you've got some emotion there somehow, and to speak to motive in a way that has something more than your own personal ambition since you were 12 years old or whenever it is he decided he wanted to be Prime Minister of Canada. But like, he gave an answer to the question of why do you want to be the PM, and it was an answer that was about someone other than himself or his party or some sort of divisive, exclusionary view of the world. For Carney, I thought his best moment was the where he said, "Look, I know you've wanted to run a campaign against Justin Trudeau and a carbon tax for 2 years, but neither one of them are around anymore." That was the best moment, I think, for him, because he is embracing change. That's passing the test that Kamala Harris wasn't able to pass when, asked, like, what would you do differently than Biden? She couldn't think of a single thing, right? Um, so what does the Liberal campaign do with that? Like, no disrespect to certainly your son, Scott. But like I think the liberal advertising has been largely underwhelming, and I would be putting a whole bunch of money into that answer and getting it out there, not all this niche, micro targeted, boring as hell bullshit that they've been driving on social media. So we'll see what happens with that. Singh, on the other hand, like I did not see the one thing that I think he should have done yesterday. Uh, I think he succeeded probably the least of the leaders in that, minusing out Blanchette, of course, whose suit was slightly better, but still looked like it's still ill-fitting and fat as fuck. But Singh, on the other hand, like I think he mostly succeeded in annoying people by interrupting constantly and did not make the pitch I think he needs to make, which I will call it the Merritt Styles pitch of if there's a NDP member in your riding, that's a sign that we are the best people to stop Polyev from winning, and everyone in that riding should vote for us because we have an important voice and we need to be there, and your mission is to do that. I would do something that micro-targeted. He did nothing that's going to grow his support base in that debate that I saw. And I think he missed an opportunity to make a very direct pitch in the ridings that they hold. So I don't know. What would I say? Who does what with the clips they have will tell the tale of as to who won the debate, but anyone watching it, everyone saw what they wanted to see.
Amidst the current trade war, our path forward is clear. If we invest in our communities, we empower our country. By investing in local strength with a national prosperity partnership between all orders of government, we can support our people, protect jobs, and diversify our economy. Learn how we can build a stronger, more resilient Canada at strongertogether.fcm.ca.
This message is authorized by the financial agent of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Jordan? I mean, I'm sort of, my take is, I guess, sort of where that is, in the sense that, first of all, I honest to God don't know who won the debate, because it's not something that you can judge, like you can say this moment happened or that moment happened. We won't know for days whether the debate had any impact. But it felt to me watching it like if you liked the idea of Carney, there was nothing in the debate that would dissuade you of that.
Yeah, I'm largely in agreement with Scott and a bit of Kory there. I don't think there was anything here that would fundamentally shift things. Everybody, I think, got a little bit of what they needed to do, but there was no decisive moment, I don't think, for anyone. And then that probably leads it to be a bit of a wash. But I mean, I was very interested in Polyev, because I thought that the performance that he brought was probably the best version that we've seen so far of his prime ministerial self, right? So he was very controlled for the whole debate. He did have a few moments where he was tossing in some of those slogans and things for his base and a little century initiative here and there, but it was pretty restrained, right? And what really struck me about that, and I will grant you, I am not his target audience, but what struck me about that is it's still it's a very stiff performance. Like when you strip away the sort of feisty populism from Polyev, which has become such a double-edged sword for him, you're left with like a pretty boring run-of-the-mill conservative politician. And so I don't know that is going to punch through for him. I also think that I would agree that the last moments of the debate were the best for him in terms of his, again, he was speaking to people, he was speaking to values, he was speaking to motivation. But we're talking, that was 5 minutes of a 2-hour debate at E-11, right? So I don't think it's enough to shift some of the fundamental paradoxes that they've set up in this campaign. Like that guy has not been around for long enough for people to evaluate based on that. But as they set out their own strategy in the debate, which was clearly to appear to be, on a leadership level with Carney, I think, yeah, not bad. But the question is, does anybody outside of their existing universe find that version of Polyev motivating? And I'm less sure about that. I thought Carney had a pretty good night. Really the test for him was, could he convey that sense of calm leadership? Was finance daddy in the house, if you will? And he was. Like, there was a couple moments where he was, but you also saw a lot of his vulnerabilities. Some of the things that we've seen, for example, in scrums come to the surface in his debating style. Like, he's not a very good debater. He got tangled up in policy in lots of moments. He had his 3 points all the time, and he's, he
Fucking
wasn't.
guy loves policy, eh?
He
Jesus
loves,
Christ.
he loves
Oh,
it, loves it,
man.
and you can see him wanting to dive into that in various points. And I thought, there was some moments too where some of the things that he's put out in the campaign tripped him up as well. Like, he got tangled up in the cuts on the operational and spending and this, that, like it comes out as gobbledygook to people. And I think that those were his weakest moments. And so he was not, and there were a number of attacks that he didn't actually parry very successfully, but he also just kind of looked like a regular person on the stage. Like, he was sort of like bemused at what was happening. And I do think that, if your whole pitch is I'm not a politician, then that's probably okay. And again, he is being graded on the world's largest curve here. And I think that by those standards, he did pretty well. As for Singh, I mean, look, he came in and he was flying elbows, he was feisty, he was fighting, and he has to. Like, he has to throw everything at this. And I think that he did. I mean, I would disagree a little bit with Kory. I think that he did make the pitch more towards the end, but, he was out there talking about the need for New Democrats to be there. And the line that I really liked, so it's, if New Democrats aren't there to remind you to think about people, you will forget. And that was to Carney. And so that's the clip. Like, that's what they're going to use. And I think this is really, of course, as you guys have both said, this is about how that's spun out over the next few days to those voters who are willing to listen. But I think overall I don't think it's going to change anything, but everybody has a little something that they can use in there to go forward.
Right. Okay. Well, let's flash forward then, because when we next reconvene, we'll be in the last week of this thing. Anybody expecting anything different from anybody over the last week, or are we just going to get the same thing magnified at us for 7 more days, or do people have a closing argument that might vary from what they've been presenting so far?
Well, I'll pick up on something Kory said. Excuse me. I'll be looking to see what people have held back in terms of paid. And I don't think that this campaign has seen much in terms of paid media that has made an impact and left much of a trace. Now's the time. I assume that the campaigns have held resources in their back pocket, and now they're going to flood. And I'll be really intrigued. To me, I think that Carney needs to spend the final week doing what he did not spend doing last week, and that is communicating with people about economic insecurity and presenting himself as the best bulwark against all of that and the fear that you may lose your job, or that the next day and the day after that, Trump will do something that inflicts unbelievable, unpredicted random harm on us. So I do think, and you've made this point emphatically, David, I think the Liberal campaign has sort of drifted for about 8-9 days. And I think they've got to get back on their toes.
So I see a pitfall because they're doing platform early next week. And I think I'm going to be watching.
They're high on their own policy supply.
They are. And look,
and they're going to want to jerk off.
All the
Carney
campaigns,
cares
all the
about
campaigns,
this, right?
all the campaigns.
Well, sure. But I would argue that I think there's probably the most downside risk here for Carney, because number one, he clearly is in the details on this stuff. He cares about it. And there's opportunity there for the Democrats. They're going to have to enumerate their cuts. This is something that is a bit of ammunition. But platforms are primarily a disaster avoidance exercise, particularly when dropped at this point in the campaign. So the question is Carney going to understand it as such, or is he going to want to get in there and dive deep? And I do think that there's a risk that could suck the energy he needs, because they were so sleepy in the last week. Like, they've got to get out and show that energized focus with a clear, crisp contrast on the Trump stuff. And I was actually really surprised, to just circle back to the debate, like, Carney didn't bring up 51st state at all. Like, it was, there was actually like very little in the debate last night about Trump. And he did miss opportunities to bring the conversation back to that. Like, we ended up with a pipeline
The Trump
debate.
conversation was a pipeline conversation.
It was a pipeline debate.
It really was.
Yeah.
And strangely specific.
And like, and I think like when if you're Carney on that stage, like your job is to steer back into those issues that are more favorable to you because your opponents are not going to help on that.
Why wouldn't I,
They're
if I was the Liberals, why wouldn't I commit? If I was Carney, why wouldn't I kick off this final week by saying, look, the minute that we recall the House of Commons, I'm going to place into the Commons a motion declaring that Canada will never concede its sovereign territory, that we will never become the 51st state. I'm going to ask for that show of force from all parties. Like, why wouldn't do that? Like something to kind of like bring that back into the frame. I'm really
there's
worried they're going to talk about how to build on the child benefit, and it's
well
handing other
there
people the microphone.
but this is why, like he said, I write all my own talking points at one point. That's clearly not fucking true. Because there is so much like Trudeau government, like self-aggrandizing, pat yourself on the back for how you've never changed your mind on anything, and it's all part of this grand master plan. And like, yeah, the only problem is like we didn't communicate it properly. Bullshit, and like, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time, talking about where that might be coming from, but like the some of the policy and shit is just more warmed over, seen it before, irrelevant to this campaign bullshit, packaged and marketed in the same lame ass way that got this government down to 19 points in the polls. Like they got to get rid of all of that. Like where is the
But he was good yesterday, Kory, in not rising to that bait very much. I didn't hear him defend the government very. Polya was trying to goad him into it, and he wouldn't. Right.
Well,
so
it's a good thing that his campaign staff weren't on stage, because I think they would have. And and when he gets up to the prompter and starts reading his remarks in the morning, it's all of that, like Jerry Butts, I think, has a famous saying of the main thing about the main thing is that it's got to be about the main thing, some version of that. Like it's that the main thing in this is about Trump and all of that. If you're the Liberals, that's your ballot question. You need to talk about that. You need to jettison the other shit. If you want to throw barbs and talk about other stuff, it's not the normal counterpoints that you make in question period if you're Justin Trudeau. It's all the people wearing MAGA hats. It's like shit like that that's on ballot and on topic. Look, at the end of the day, I think there's only one Liberal ad I think that's had any bite, and that's the one that compares Polyev to Trump in terms of tone and style. The rest of it is like also forgettable as to be irrelevant. And this is the time for closing arguments. And if you're Polyev, look, I thought he was on target when he was talking about uh, not giving the Liberal government that a lot of people in Canada still don't like, they haven't liked for a long time, and not giving them another term. And when he was talking about comparing Carney to Trudeau, I think he was off topic, because like he so clearly isn't. Like in the first 4 minutes of the debate, Carney thought about and talked more about the economy than Trudeau did in 8 fucking years. So like they're clearly not the same. So like I think both these campaigns have been just so bad on the ad side and in some of the messaging around stuff. We'll see whether anyone can actually get it back on track. Like I thought tons of discipline and focus at the very beginning of this campaign for the Liberals, and none in the last week and a half. Anyway.
No, I agree. Now, Jordan, a lot of the outcome is going to depend on whether the NDP gets 7% of the vote or 12% of the vote, right? So we talked earlier about how the ideal NDP closing argument is you're going to get the Carney government you want, but let's give it a social conscience and elect some new Democrats. However, the outcome isn't as clear cut as you would like to make that argument, is it?
It's tricky because I think, if we look at if we scratch below the surface of the national horse race numbers, yeah, the outcome is still pretty solidly a Liberal majority at this point. But whether that message is reaching voters is, of course, a different question. And so I think that one of the hopes of the NDP campaign has to be this week that the Liberals are going to show a little bit more momentum, get back some of that shine onto Carney that he had over the first few weeks of the campaign, more focus, a little bit more energy, more purpose. Because having a strong sign of life in the Liberal campaign and a clear sense that they're just marching to a majority is an important basis for the NDP's endgame message. But look, I think, they've got the ingredients of their endgame message. They also changed to their endgame message earlier than any other parties. They did that about 10 days ago, including cutting new ads, retooling their tour. So they're doing everything that you would expect to do in the difficult circumstance they're finding themselves in. And I think you're going to see him spending a lot of time in BC and Ontario over the next 10 days, which is as it should be in these circumstances. So they just have
What
to.
if I suggested something shitty to you?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that would be a rarity, David.
Right. But it's something shitty that I've done in campaigns I've run to my own candidates, which is take him out of the ads. Make it about the NDP, not about him.
So some of their ads don't
make it an
have him
NDP.
in it.
You need the NDP, not specifically this New Democrat.
Yeah.
To be blunt, but you need the NDP.
Yeah, so their ads that they recut it's about half and half. So yeah, they've thought that one through. And I think it is true that the compelling message that's being made here is about the party brand. It's about the record. It's about the sense that Canadians have of safety with the NDP and defending some of those things. So it is absolutely a party brand message. Yeah.
But
I think you need to.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Well, all I was going to say is I think you need to do what you think you've done more. So I think the NDP feel that they moved their message to this appeal. And I don't know that it's tight enough, explicit enough, frantic enough. Like, I think it has to become a donate blood campaign for the next few days. I think it has to be literally, we are on the surgical table here. Okay. If you've ever voted NDP, the whole project's at risk. Donate now. Donate now. Do not wait. Okay. Like, the body needs the blood, and please, your red blood cells in your plasma, we need it now. And I'd focus it. Kory's more eloquent on this than I am. I would focus it on literally the ridings where you have members, or, like, all this shit about trying to pick up stuff in Saskatoon and all that. Fuck all that. Like, just go to the 15, 20 places where there's a reasonable prospect and donate blood.
Because this is why I think you have to be so specific about incumbent held ridings. Like, this is save the furniture at this point for the NDP. And the message of, like, hey, everybody, vote for the NDP, blah, 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 all of those same messages, that, and say it gets you from 7 to 12, you get exactly what those people don't want, which is a Poilievre government. And like saying, if you have an NDP incumbent, vote for the NDP. I think that is that's the Marit Stiles plan. And I think that's what's in order, because the other message sounds like, vote for us in a futile act because only a few of you are going to do it. And the outcome will not be, more NDP members. It'll be a Poilievre government, which they don't want. And so I think you have to sell that message in a way that looks credible with the voters, because when you look at voter intent and who is not totally set in where they're going to vote, as bad as it is for Singh, like, he's got the least secure base. Like they're like 8 points, and they could still lose half of the fucking votes they have. So I think you gotta this is not carpet bombing. This is like the laser bomb that you need, that is right on that target if you want to actually move people's votes. Because I think in NDP held ridings, I think that message could actually work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that in BC in particular, the campaign has been really focused on that. And actually it's interesting to think too about what's happening with the Greens and the opportunity that potentially provides for the NDP in BC. It's not a lot of votes, but if you pile those up in the right ridings, it can be
on
helpful
Vancouver Island. It is on Vancouver Island. There's a number so making the case that the Greens are a complete non-entity this campaign,
that in BC, in those ridings, it is New Democrats that beat Conservatives. So that's, if you look at the literature that's being used locally, that's what they're doing there. But they just got to make sure people hear it in time.
But the Green core vote is not exclusively a left-wing vote.
No.
The
Yeah.
Green core is a weird conglomeration.
Well, you get some
of
libertarians in there. You get, there's.
It's a collection of oddballs and weirdos. And
But then
like,
again,
it's
also in those BC ridings, like you got to worry about the communist vote splitting things. Like it's a different place out there.
All right, should we move to our blessings and curses?
So I have a nice one today. I thought about complaining about the debate commission again, but I feel like we've covered that ground adequately. So it's a blessing going out to all the folks working on campaigns all across the country as we head into the long weekend. I think this is probably the period at which people feel most dead in a campaign. So if you have a friend or a family member that's working on a campaign, please bring that person a care package, do their laundry, invite them over for a meal that is home cooked and is not pizza or lasagna from the campaign office. They will be really, really happy, and it will put some wind in their sails for these last few days. So a thank you to everybody who's out there doing that work. It's very hard work. It's really tough work, but it's really important for making this whole democracy thing go.
In the 2004 campaign, Webster had no laundry services, and somebody's job in the campaign was to buy him new underwear for every day of the campaign.
Wash and fold, guys. Wash and fold. It exists for a reason.
It's an awful story.
Beginning to think your campaigns have hygiene issues, David.
Oh, they do.
Oh, no.
They do. All right, Scott, you got a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, I have a blessing to you, Francois Blanchette. I think one of the things that maybe has been less scrutinized the last couple of days, Blanchette's not been good. He was super annoying. He was super annoying last night in English, but and maybe that slightly benefits Carney.
He used to be funny and charming. Where was that guy?
Yeah. No, he's not. And I actually think, and same thing in French. And
he ate him. He ate him. That's what happened.
I ate that guy. And I just think it's a lot more consequential than we might be thinking about. Because if you look at the numbers, the Conservatives have been doing okay in Quebec. And I don't think Blanchette has done a thing to lift himself. And you've got a Doug Ford split opposition scenario going on in the province of Quebec for Carney. He's hovering around 36 to 40%. And his opponents each have 25%. Now I know they're in slightly different places, obviously, but I think this thing is rolling. Blanchette's inability to figure out how to plug into this context of Trump, how it affects the tribal nationalist impulse in Quebec, and how it's actually stampeded people toward Carney. And I think we're going to see a bigger result for the Liberals in the province of Quebec than people have been necessarily counting on. And Blanchette's inability to navigate that scenario. We talk a lot about Poilievre's inability to navigate it. Blanchette's been at least, if not more, unable to adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. And God bless him. All right, Kory?
Exactly.
Can I do a quick recommendation for folks? And then because I wanted to get to this earlier when we were talking about all the polling, but I really encourage everyone to read David Coletto's analysis. I think it came out a day ago, something like that, around who's voting for whom and why, and like a regression analysis. Really good stuff there, and very similar to what Pollara pulled together for you this morning, David. But really good, worth the read. Go check it out. In terms of blessing, I want to throw a blessing to Vashi Capellos and all the CTV crew. This is sort of Scott and my other family of people we've been doing this stuff with. They were freezing their ass off the other day, and like it's a big crew of folks. Kathleen and Scott and I've been spending a lot of time together as well. But really a great crew of folks, and I think been doing some really good work. After we were done last night, and we all went off to the bar to have a couple of pints. Vashi hopped in her car and drove back to Ottawa so she could be on air at 6 a.m. And Anyway, good on them. I think they've been really cranking out some really good coverage. So blessing to all the folks at CTV.
Well, I think
Big
they were
time.
wise to not include Jordan and I in their thing because if the Curse of Politics panel had been loosed on Montreal last night, there would be carnage in that city.
Yeah, we would not be up at 6 a.m.
My blessing goes out to Mark Kearney for his debate performances this week. The guy walked into politics, walked into the most alien circumstance you can possibly walk into, and I think acquitted himself very, very well over the last couple of days, and I think probably sealed the deal last night. So well done. All right, everybody. That is our coverage for today. We're going to take the weekend off, of course, but we're back as bad Catholics like I am. We're back Easter Monday morning with more Curse of Politics, and we'll take you
What is
right.
the Catholic thing about Monday? There's no Monday Catholic thing. It wasn't like, and then Jesus rose, and then the next day, what? The next day, like he talked to people.
Well, the next day is so fucking
handed
big
out
that you don't
eggs.
work on the Monday. Like something like that happens on Sunday. You don't go down to the loading dock on Monday.
The fella did
Scott,
come
if you
to
rise
life.
from the
Jesus
dead,
Christ.
if you rise from the dead, you get a day off. You get a day
I
off.
think at least, and plus, like, rising from the dead and the Easter eggs, somehow it's all connected, and you got to have time to eat the chocolate.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And we rolled the rock. Where is he? He's not. He's gone. He's back. He's living.
Listen, you doubting Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. The story doesn't hold up. I'm sorry.
Put your fingers in the holes. All
Me?
right.
I gotta
Doubting
go
Thomas.
now.
That's what it's all about. Anyway, Jesus. It's gone bad. It's gone bad, Scott. You took it there. You took it there. As my mom is my witness, you did that, not me.
I'm telling you, you did it. You did it. I don't know what kind of bathroom you're working, but
all right. Thank you to our sponsors, Candu Enbridge and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Goodbye, everybody. See you Monday.